Global Club and Dance Hall of Fame.
Those of us who had the benefit of being there in the early years when people didn't know what you were talking about when you said, I'm going to Ibiza.
Yeah.
It was very different because it was like the best kept secret.
It's like a gem, wasn't
Magical.
it? Yeah.
We used to go clubbing when we first started. It was like going to church.
It's like a religion, isn't it? What we've created is like a religion.
Letting the song speak to you is really the magic of songwriting. Initially, everyone was just like, whoa, and that was really what we were going for. You're either gonna love it or you're gonna be like, what the hell are they doing?
Global Club and Dance Hall of Fame.
Welcome to the Global Club and Dance Hall of Fame podcast with myself, Clara Griffin, and also Big Al. Our next guest is a singer, songwriter, producer, and DJ and promoter, best known for her timeless anthem, Free. She spent decades bridging underground club energy with global appeal, becoming one of the most influential and enduring figures in dance music history. We welcome Ultra Naté into the Global Club and Dance Hall of Fame.
Thank you, thank you,
Hi.
thank you. So good to be here.
Lovely meeting you. We would just love to know your sort of background. When did you first get involved with music?
Oh wow, that was from the early beginnings of house music. Really, we were kind of that period that kind of set the template for what all of this culture was built on when it was coming from Chicago and New York in the late '80s. I had just graduated from high school in Baltimore, where I live. And I started clubbing at a club called Odell's that was actually fashioned after the Paradise Garage. So it was our version of the Garage in terms of sound and vibe and music. And so we were learning in that space. And just being in that space, dancing every weekend, I met the Basement Boys. They were young, new producers. They were starting their own production company. And they had done like one song on a small New York label. And now they wanted to like expand, find some writers, find some vocalists. They, one of them, Tommy Davis from the group, knew me from Odell's, and he was a DJ. He was like the guy everybody went to at the record store the next day after the club. And he just asked me to come down and hang out. I had no aspirations to go into music.
Did you train to music?
None at all. None at all.
It was a natural. You
it
had
was
a voice.
just a kid hanging out at the club. He kind of
Fantastic.
knew
I like
that
that.
I sang a little bit in my choir at church, but
Gospel,
not
bit of
like,
gospel, yeah.
Maybe he thought I was like the singing diva, but I wasn't. I was really just kind of in the choir. But I was going to school, I was getting ready to go into university to study medicine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We're glad you didn't carry on with that. We're glad.
Completely had
We are
nothing to
glad that you
do
didn't
with
carry on
music.
with that.
I had never written a song before or anything until the moment that I did it in the basement, hanging out with the boys, just really casual. And we were just sitting around the kitchen table like, let's come up with a song. So I wrote some lyrics, and then they pulled out, some music from the closet, a track I had never heard. And I went into the booth and just pretty much freestyled over this beat with the little scrabble of lyrics that we had cobbled together and formed a melody in real time. And that demo ended up getting me my first record deal with Warner UK in 1989. My first single came out on a major label.
Which was what?
It was a song called It's Over Now, followed up with my album Blue Notes from the Basement. So I ended up releasing 2 albums on Warner. The first one on Warner UK, the second on Warner US. And that pretty much started my career, but I was learning in real time while I was actually like writing songs for this Now album that went from like, it's a 12-inch deal. You're gonna put out a single with an option to follow up, that turned into an album deal. So at that moment, I was probably like 20 years old, 21 years old.
Wow.
Had never written music before, had never sang before the moment I went in the studio.
So a real change from what you thought your career was going to be.
And then suddenly I was on radio here in the UK and being flown over to shoot videos and do press and promo, and suddenly I was like a thing, and it was kind of jarring in that moment, but I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process because, I was an underground club kid, so it was all centered around music that I loved, and I had the luxury and, for lack of a better word, freedom to make the kind of songs that I wanted to make, and it was being received so amazing here in the UK. So it's really the UK's fault that I'm even here.
Well, we talk about it quite often, and obviously the music came out of Chicago in the mid-'80s, didn't it?
Yes.
But there wasn't really a house scene in Chicago, was there?
It was in
quite
underground
like
spaces. It was in underground spaces because the sound and the culture really started in small marginalized communities, in the LGBTQ community, Black and brown communities, where people went to dance that weren't allowed to go dancing in the more mainstream places.
That's the reason why a lot of the black DJs are actually gay, aren't they? Because they came out of that.
That's where a lot of it started. People were finding community and finding safe spaces on their own outside of the margins of what mainstream culture was doing. So in New York, you had your Studio 54, but a lot of the kids that went to the garage, they weren't going to 54. They probably wouldn't even be allowed to get in. But they started their own culture, and then that started dictating radio. Because people were, Larry Levan and Frankie and all of those DJs from that era, Nicky Ciano, a lot of those guys, what they were playing in their underground spaces were starting to dictate what was charting and driving music culture. And so that's when, a lot of the people in the political position started to look and to see what is this music? Like, what is this? But outside of those spaces, people didn't know what any of it was.
Well, my story is, I was one of those little enclaves in West London that started this whole house scene off. There was a few of us scattered around London, probably about 5 or 6 of us. There was Shum, Danny Rampling. There was myself in West London. There was Trevor Fung and Paul Oakenfold in South London. There was my ex-partner Tommy Mack, who was out in Berkshire. There was only a few little spots, it was a real underground scene. And what it's become is unbelievable. It is incredible.
Absolutely.
And me and Tommy famously went to Ibiza, started doing Coup, 10,000 people open air, and it was, we took our scene to Ibiza. We already had a scene, so it was a clash of two things. It was fantastic. And so this is what we talk about, the history of dance music. Really, this is what we're talking about.
Well, my love with the UK, on top of the fact that my A&R person, Cynthia Cherry, who was part of the New York scene, basically walked my demo into Warner UK as something she wanted to sign if she would get hired as A&R director of a new dance imprint that Warner was putting out called Eternal. Obviously, she got hired, I got signed, and then that started that. But it was also people like Tony Humphries, who was like the Larry Levan of Jersey, and Club Zanzibar, that really embraced this It's Over Now song. And he was like playing it for almost a year before it actually came out commercially. And he also had a radio show on Kiss FM in New York that was syndicated in the UK. So London was learning and hearing It's Over Now and this Ultra Naté person without knowing who or what it was. And people like Norman Jay also were very instrumental with High on Hope. And
we love Norman.
like a lot of the DJs here really embraced that sound. Paul Trouble Anderson and The Loft, those were like my early beginnings. Jeffrey Hinton and Luke, a lot of those folks, Princess Julia, they were part of like my initial family here also, and creating spaces again for this really underground sound. But once it got platformed,
special at the beginning, wasn't it?
Once it got platformed with a major label, that really changed the whole dynamics and set the precedent of like where it was going to go.
It just started growing. I love the beginnings because it's something from very, very underground suddenly to the masses. I was the first person to let News at 10, ITV, in our night to show Acid House. And other people started having a go at me, saying, "Why are you letting me into our underground?"
Don't let them in.
I wanted more and more people to know what we were doing. I wanted more and more.
And that was the thinking. We were just club kids having a good time, but we definitely we also came from a place of like love and inclusion. So you wanted everybody to share in it. Like you want everybody to have this really good feeling and enjoy this really great music that's like so transcendental. You know what I mean? So it was our fault. But
let's talk a little bit about your music. So famously Free. Let's talk about that. Let's talk. Massive, absolute banger. I mean, most people on the planet know what that record is. Let's talk a little about that. Yeah,
well, Free came at a time. In getting back to that history of the two albums with Warner. So that second album was Warner US because my A&R person, Cynthia, wanted to come back to the United States. And for me, that was kind of the death knell, really, because it was now back in the US where they didn't really know, love, or understand house music in that way. So the demand on us as a production team, myself and the boys, was to now figure out how to turn what we love as underground house that was platformed, you know, by
Slightly
people
more commercial.
that got it, to people that got it, to now figure out how you make that more commercial and more radio friendly for the United States, because they don't understand this club thing, building it at club level first.
Yeah,
that
they didn't get it at the
infrastructure,
beginning, did they?
Yeah, that wasn't there. It's not like it is now. So that infrastructure wasn't there. They didn't know it. They didn't understand it, and had no use for it. So really, it was like, how do you make this radio friendly for us? How do we do that without alienating our roots? And so we wrote the One Woman's Insanity album, and I think we did a really great job of walking that line, but we didn't get far enough over that line to satisfy a major label in the US. So they inevitably dropped me in '94. And then I spent the next couple years like just writing with friends, going back and forth to New York, writing with people who, you know, got it. I didn't have a deal in place, and we weren't really hungry to find a new deal, because also the scene was changing. The music was changing, and the dynamics at the majors was changing. And then most importantly, I was on the wrong side of 25 at that point, as I was told, when my manager was shopping for things, because there is that factor of ageism that was, you know, in
It's
that.
gone out the window now.
In the
though,
major,
isn't it?
it's completely out the window now. But you know, this was the '90s, girl. 90s, you're not 21 anymore. You know what I mean? So I was, you know, still in my 20s, but I was on the wrong side of 25.
Talent, isn't it? Talent is talent. And there's no age to talent.
Yeah,
is there?
well, you know, I had the last laugh. The next thing I wrote was free, and here we are. But it was really Gladys Pizarro that came into the equation at that time. Gladys had been watching my career from a distance. Gladys was the head honcho A&R person at Strictly Rhythm, which was a label that was an indie label.
It's a great label.
Had built an amazing brand universally with DJ culture and club culture. And they also had the benefit of having had successful records. So they had capital, because I was coming from a major label place. So I understood what it took to make a record. So it wasn't just about writing a good record. You also needed the infrastructure of a label that knew how to take that record and build it out there in the world. You know, lots of great records out there, but they don't always get the light and the machine behind them to really get an opportunity to be a hit. So with Strictly Rhythm, I kind of had the best of both worlds, where I had a company that operated guerrilla style. You know what I mean? I could make a record and they could get it immediately in the hands of the tastemaker DJs that dictated culture. Amazing. In that time. Yeah. And then upstream it to a major once it was built on a club level. So when we approached going into this deal with Strictly, I had now 6-7 years of experience under my belt. I had made some great music. I had 2 albums. I was, you know, known around the world. I was established as a singer-songwriter. I was established as an artist. I wasn't obscured by my producers or by anyone, which is also a bit of an anomaly in dance music culture as well, because a lot of times female artists, especially black women, can be obscured by the producers or the DJ or, you know, other factors. So I was in a very unique position to step into that deal. And I was given the tools, which a lot of artists are not given also, to go in the studio, make the record that you want to make. Gladys's strength was that she had the vision to not get in the way, but give me the tools that I needed in order to create. So myself, my manager, Bill Coleman, my team of Move to Swing as producers that we chose, my vocal producer, Danny Madden, we all got in the room together, and really, they were really interested in, like, what do you want it to sound like? And for me and Bill, who is my manager, but he's also like a creative collaborator and partner through all of it, really wanted to do something with guitars. So our first inspiration in writing Free was, we're going to write a record with guitars. That's going to be the centerpiece. Everything else is going to be built around that. So we wrote the guitar ideas first. Once we settled on that, then we started writing melodies with additional instruments around that. And then we had this really driving guitar story going on, these 2 guitars, the bittersweet one, and then the one that creates the rhythm pocket. And it was just a matter of like, what does the song say? And so Lem from Move to Swing was like, you just need to scream something like free. And we were all like, that's it.
That's the song.
You know? Yeah, like totally like, that's it. That's the word. But not like, how does that word now happened, like that was like the next step. So we were really like putting a jigsaw puzzle together, all of us collectively, which is the great thing about collaboration, because when you trust everybody in the mix,
different flavors.
Yeah, and you get a bunch of people who have really amazing ideas, who are really soulfully down for this project and all want it to shine. So there's no one like with ego, like, oh, I contributed this or I contributed that. It's like everybody was just like, how do we make this even better, even better? So once we had that next little layer of the game, there's like a Jenga going on, you know, it was like, how do I sing free? So it's a matter of like listening to the guitars and letting the song speak to you is really the magic of songwriting, is to kind of get out of your own way and shoot from the hip of like what comes first.
Yeah.
So I ended up writing free probably 2 times, and then we ended up chopping different bits. You know, like, okay, this bit is really good right here, this part, so we can get rid of that. Like, let's put these 2 bits together. So it became a bit of a...
The DJ in you was
coming
out. The producer
you
DJ
know, it
was
was like
coming out.
chopping it up and getting the arrangement just right. And, you know, Danny Madden's input, all of them, you know, everybody, even my engineer, Phil Pagano, like, you know, him being able to anticipate what the next step was, you know, keeping track of like what we were doing. Because when we would get going, the ideas and directions would be bouncing all over the place. So you need a really creative and smart engineer who's also locked in to like keep all of that and keep moving the chain forward. So everybody in the equation was just such a superstar, even down to the background singers, which we all refer to as the A-team, because they've sang for people like Luther Vandross and Chaka, and like they've sung for everyone. And we brought them in, and I had been working with them for years through Danny Madden, and they brought this color and breath to the record that was just, for us, amazing. But of course, when we finished, we had no idea if anybody else outside of us would like it. So there's still no guarantee that, you know, is anybody going to get this?
Yeah. It must have been a buzz at the time now, because I can see like how
it's
you
good.
describing
So much
it.
energy.
It was
must
still
have
at
been
that
such a
moment,
lovely
like you just don't know.
Well, you never know, do
Yeah.
You don't know. And I had been
Yeah.
gone for 3 years at that point, because by the time Free came out, it was 97. So for me, it felt like, you know, this is the moment for me to like start a new chapter in my career. And it could really be a make it or break it, because if it doesn't work, I'm just going to go back into like the medical studies that I was interested in the first place.
What label did it come out on?
On Strictly Rhythm.
Strictly Rhythm.
Yeah,
So
as the
that's what
home
you're
label.
talking
And then it was signed to AM/PM in the UK. And that was under the A&M major label.
Yeah.
So it went further and further upstream that way. But it was broken in 97 at the Winter Music Conference.
It's a monster. You got. It's definitely
It
a
is.
monster on your hands.
Yeah.
That one, isn't it?
Well, that was the great thing, is that when we played it, initially everyone was just like, whoa. And that was really what we were going for. You're either going to love it or you're going to be like, what the hell are they doing? Like, what is this? Yeah. Because it had to be distinctive. And I had nothing to lose at that point. I didn't have a major label deal anymore. And there's no point in going in there and trying to do something safe that's already been done, to see what was happening in charts at that moment and try to replicate any of that. Like, to me, there's no point in doing that. So.
Was it a worldwide hit? It was a
yeah.
worldwide hit. Yeah, it was. Yeah. I also, I was on the way down today, was listening to your newest track, Hugel.
Yes.
Fantastic. I love it. I think it's a fantastic
Movin To The
track.
Sun.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little about that.
Yeah, that's Hugel
I
and
love the vocal
Emile
you're doing
Angel.
it.
Thank you.
The unusual vocally bit. What are you singing at that point?
So it's like, that's
trying to work out what
that
you're
is a
saying.
question of all
I'm trying to work
questions. And I love it. I'm just, I follow my comments on socials, and I'm just tickled all the time and kind of giggling at people as they're like, I need to get those lyrics. But those pieces are more like a scat, and it's more like the vocals are like kind of chopped.
Yeah.
And it's like a scat, but electronified, if you want to think of it in that way.
That makes sense.
So it's
I'm
like if you're
thinking,
trying to
what's she
say the
saying?
whole word, you're going to lose the timing.
Yeah.
So it's, it's.
Are you doing that tonight?
No, because it's not a part of Hacienda's, history.
Catalog, okay.
It's all about the classics and the songs that were
Right.
played.
I really do like that.
Yeah.
place.
I know. I've heard that from a lot of people. People have been commenting on my page, like, "Are you going to do it tonight?" I'm like,
Yeah.
It's not really relevant.
Not relevant. Not yet.
We are.
Later at the end of the season, it'll be relevant to everyone, I think.
Exactly. But in it coming together, that was Hugel's baby. Emile Angel, who is also part of the artists credited on it. She actually wrote the song. She's a Hungarian lady that does Reiki, and I believe she's actually based in the UK. And she was working on things on her own, but I don't think she really had aspirations of being an artist herself. I think she was just likes writing these like very esoteric kind of spiritual pieces, and came up with this concept. And I'm not sure how Hugel got into the mix with her. Some kind of way they started collaborating on it, and he wanted to remix it and put it out on his label to make it part of his new project. He
seems like he's on the up and up as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. He's blown up exponentially, but he's been continually on that climb for quite a while now. We were actually on the back of his remix of Free that just came out back in November.
Oh, you remixed yours?
Yeah, he remixed Free. Okay. You know, it performed great. You know, people really love it. I felt like he did an amazing job keeping the spirit of the song while bringing it into a more modern context for where Afro House and in his lane.
Bit more thumping or something, is it?
Yeah, so I think he really respected and understood the assignment with that. So he really just kind of hit me out of the blue in early May and was just like, where are you in the world? And I was like, oh, I'm home at the moment. So, you know, he just kind of told me a little bit about the track. He had this really great tune. He wanted to collaborate with me on it. And, you know, things went so easily with us on the Free remix that I was like, okay, yeah, sure, let me check it out. If I like it, you know. Yeah. So he sent it to me, her original version, he sent it to me. And I was like, this is dope. Okay, you know, I'll give it a shot.
I think you've got a winner chicken dinner.
Yeah, you know, it was really that simple. And, you know, a couple days later, I was cutting vocals and sending them things. And then they did their treatment and spit shined it all, chopped it, and did all the things with arrangements and everything. And 2 weeks later, it was literally out commercially.
Yeah, no. So you definitely got a winner on your hands, though.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even I can hear
People
that.
are loving it. People are really loving it, and it's so interesting having this kind of record hit so prevalent in this day and time. Because, you know, unlike my first record when I was with Warner, hitting the way it did with Blue Notes from the Basement, and then fast forward to Free and Found a Cure, and If You Could Read My Mind. And all those tracks, and then in the early 2010s, I released Automatic, a remake of the Pointer Sisters classic, and that did really well here and abroad. But it's so different now because the real-time feedback.
You were growing up on that Pointer Sisters stuff, and that.
I did. I love a Pointer Sisters record, but the real-time feedback is so immense now because you really can see how it's impacting people like everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This scene has grown.
You get the true feedback.
You get the absolute
social media
yes.
and
it's a whole different game.
People reposting, sharing.
I mean, it must be great for you, this scene being such a massive thing, what it is now.
Well, that's been the blessing and the curse of the
scene
scene is that it's gotten so massive that, and there's so many people putting out music. You know, the internet has given us the benefit of people being able to put music out without having a major label deal.
Bedroom.
But at the same time, you get a lot of saturation from too much music being put out every single day of every week. And then it's like, how do you
the numbers
make,
huge.
You know, a noise above all of the fray, above the crowd of, you know, and the consumer is just hit with so much all the time. So it can be a blessing and a curse at the same time. So it's good to see with a record like this, like how fast people have gravitated towards it and resonated with them.
Yeah. And
made it their summer mantra already.
It is, yeah. I think it definitely. I think it will be the summer.
But we'll see.
Let's see.
If it sustains like Free. 28 years later, not for nothing, it's still.
So I mean, you go to Ibiza a lot, obviously.
I do. Yeah.
So you love the island?
I do. I love Ibiza.
Is it bitten you like it has me? Do you get that unusual feeling when you turn up there? It's something a bit different going on there.
It is different, and you know. To be fair, because, you know, we can all be a bit of purists, those of us who had the benefit of being there in the early years when people didn't know what you were talking about when you said, I'm going to Ibiza. Yeah. It was very different because it was like the best kept secret, you know, so you kind of went into this little secret society when you landed, and it was just, you know, it was in a way
it's like a gem,
magical. Yeah, you were stepping into this magical place that like the world doesn't really know about. And that's changed. Obviously, now it's more commercialized. It's, you know, it's more widely known, and that can changed things.
It's changed a lot.
It's changed a lot of things.
I still love it. I mean, it's not as free as it used to be, but I love it just as much.
I do still love it. I have a lot of great memories there. I have a lot of just attachment to the island, and I feel like it still has its spiritual, special way. And I think as far as the party scene, you can get as much of that as you want, or you can go into the completely rustic side of it and just,
beaches and restaurants and this. It's got everything, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have been your most memorable moments in Ibiza?
Oh my gosh, it's been a lot of them. There's been a lot of them. I think probably like back in, when free hit really big, going to Ibiza was just a crazy experience because everybody recognized me. I was highly recognizable because of the short blonde crop hairstyle. And so there were nights we would go to, one night in particular, we were at Pasha. And it was myself and one of my good girlfriends from Baltimore had come over. She met me there. And we would, raging it up, having a good time, having those vodkas in the VIP. And you know how Pasha is set up, so everybody can see you.
Yeah.
And I'm in the middle. They set me up in the VIP in the middle of the club. And I was mixing her drinks. And because she's very tall and statuesque, I was like, oh, she can take it. She's fine. So I'm like mixing her drinks. Well, I got her wasted inadvertently. So at some point in the night into the morning, she started looking a little green around the gills. And I was like, oh my God, you cannot do this. Like in the middle of the club, in the VIP, and everybody in here knows who I am. Like you cannot go left on me. She started getting woozy and tipsy, and like it was turned into a mess. I was like, okay, we've got to get out of here. It was just like, skirt, party's over. And then I had to maneuver like this 6'2" woman, and I'm little, so I'm like, okay, girl, let's, we're maneuvering through the crowd, and people are like, oh, Naté, how are you? I love you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm great, wonderful. I got to get my homegirl out of this club before she falls absolutely apart.
We've all done that a million times.
Yeah, and now meantime, I've been cocktailing it myself all evening, so I'm like, this is a really hard job because I've got to look completely sober right now, right? Because, we've got appearances to keep up, but we were having a good time, and then we made it out of the club. We drove back to the hotel, and just as we got to the door, we like fell in the door of the hotel, like, okay, we're safe now. And she's just coming behind me like a huge mountain, and I'm like, because that was it. And we just, spent the whole day like hungover and trying to get it together. And I was like, we'll never do that again.
I spent many years
but I think everybody has done that.
No, I spent many years doing that.
A little miscalculation. Because the point was we were not supposed to be leaving the club that early, even though this was probably like already 6 or 7 in the morning. It was still full on packed and party going. So we're thinking by the time the party's over, we're going to be completely like clear. But she, went over the edge. So yeah, it was a little tricky, but it was fun, and there was many mornings that we would then go to Space and dance well into the afternoon and be just broke down to the point where you like, I can't do one more two-step.
Space was good for that, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you had to find that energy because then the next record would come in and it'd just be like,
here we go again.
Yeah, you're about to leave.
I can't leave. I can't, And that was really the beauty of it. Like you really could go 24/7 if you had the stamina for it, you could really go hard. And I never did drugs or any of that. So, my energy was just pure about the music and about dancing and about the scene. But you get to that point where you hit the wall and...
Oh, we're all at that point. Yeah. So you've worked with many DJs. You DJ yourself. Mm-hmm. Who's your favourite DJ?
Oh, I will not answer that question, sir.
Give us a few then. At least give us a few.
I'm going to race no fools over here. You are not ruining my life. Thank you very much. I will not do that.
You're staying on the fence on that one.
I am so far on the fence on that one. Yeah, I can't answer that.
What about music? What have been like some of the most inspirational tracks that you've ever heard over the years?
There's so many. I'm so affected by music. I mean, even beyond house, way beyond house. I mean, I grew up on soul music, obviously, and that's really what taught me how to sing and how to write songs. For someone that had no formal training in either, it was really like the soul music that I grew up on that I pulled from. When I did get into house music and I did get the benefit of clubbing and then being in Ibiza, definitely there were songs there that were impacting.
They're imprinted on your brain, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like my good friend David Morales, there was his "Needing You" record was really huge.
Great track.
Still sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Roger Sanchez, Another Chance, like, that still sounds great. And those are my friends, so I could be a little biased, but I think they were amazing tracks. I still love to hear Spiller.
Spiller, yeah, great track. Yeah.
Oh gosh, there's so many. It's a lot.
You got any Frankie Knuckles connections?
Absolutely. Frankie was my mentor, my big brother. He was my good friend.
We're going to do a posthumous for quite a few of the guys who are no longer with us.
Yeah, I mean, Frankie was so pivotal in my life. Even before I met him, obviously, he was impacting the culture. We all knew who he was. He's the godfather of house. Him and key folks from Chicago really were part of pushing the sound forward outside of our small underground spaces. And I had the benefit of meeting him, I don't know when, sometime in the early 90s. And we instantly, fell in love. He used to call me Baby Sis. And when we would get together, because, he was touring all the time, I was touring all the time. But when we would get together, we were family. And he was, a big old man, and he had this amazing hug.
Yeah, everyone's got a lot of affection for him.
Yeah, and he would just envelop you in this hug. And he was always warm and beautiful. And we got a chance to collaborate later on. He had gone on hiatus at one point for a while. And then he made a comeback and started working as director's cut. When he started that, I enlisted him to remix one of my records, Waiting on You. And he did this really great remix, and then he sent it to me and he was like, let me know what you think. And I was just like, you're asking me? Like, I'm not gonna critique a Frankie Knuckles. Like, are you crazy? Like, what? But I just thought that was so giving and so beautiful of him to genuinely care about what my opinion was on his remix and be open to, a criticism, which sounds like insane for me to even think about. But yeah, like he was totally open to that and really wanted my honest opinion about how I felt about it. I mean, obviously it was amazing, so there was no criticism that I could give. But that was the kind of person that he was. He was never gassed on himself. He never was one to be gassed on the press about him, about the culture that he carried on his shoulder. He just really believed in the music and fully represented what the culture is about.
Very talented man.
Very talented man. He really knew how to make a song unfold on the dance floor. He really knew how to tap into your emotional energy and take you for the ride. Because we come from a school of where the DJ played all night, one DJ, and you were there for the duration. So
take you on a journey. Yeah,
so it was really about that journey, those roller coaster rides of like ups and then in the valley and in those spaces and the colors that you created as a DJ to pull that emotional piece from people. And you created this sense of community. Everyone that was in the room was on a frequency, a vibration together. That was very transcendental. Like, those of us from those eras, we talk about that all the time. And I don't know if people now can really fully appreciate it yet. You really have to be there. We talk a lot on this podcast about that. To get it. And there's still pockets of places that are really centering that energy and really trying to like diffuse some of the hype and some of the distractions so that people can really strip down to like their raw selves.
What do you think we had Nicky Holloway on recently, and he said the music now, you get an hour set if you're lucky. You get an hour and a half, and it's all killer. No filler. I mean, that's a great quote from Nicky. Nice one, Nick. I'll use it again. But I mean, what do you reckon on that? There's less of the journey going on right now, isn't there?
Well, it is because once there's money involved, when big money comes into any equation, corporate backing and things like that, that commercialism is going to dilute things down. I mean, that's just with anything that's created from soul and from real community. Suddenly that becomes in vogue, and people with the levers that can pull the levers are going to look to how do we monetize it? How do we monetize it? How do we distill this down for like the regular Joe who knows nothing about the culture? how do we distill it down for them to
I think
get?
that's what's happened within what's gone on, why it's so big. And, you know, there's still us who started it, but there's also people who like us who love the scene.
Yeah.
But now there's a whole industry of people who don't really know a great deal about it, isn't there? You know, that's the masses sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, the hope is that they will, you know, I'm just one of those, you know, I choose to try to be optimistic about these things. So my thought process is hopefully that entry point might be what gets you to come into that space where you can then learn and experience what the true culture is about some kind of way. And that's happened, you know, I feel like instead of sitting around complaining about it, how are you creating culture? How are you putting the culture forth? You know what I mean? So for me, I created my own party in Baltimore where I live because I noticed in the late 90s that in the early 2000s that our scene in its purest form was dying. So rather than letting that die, I created my own party to feed the scene and give the opportunity for people who maybe just like kids like myself who stumbled into a club that suddenly changed the trajectory of their life. Or you know, all these artists who, you know, feel like they're, you know, just some strange kind of being.
You would have been a doctor if it
and
wasn't
don't
for music.
know who they are or what they are until they got in this room with all of these other interesting creatives, and then their creativity kind of bounces off each other. When you look at the scene from like the days of Jelly Bean Benitez, Madonna, Basquiat, you know, Andy Warhol, all of them were in a crew. They were all going to the same clubs. They were all vibing off each other's energy. So you had these incubators being created. So rather than look at the scene and be like, you know, this scene is dying, I took my platform, the little space that I could control, and created that platform again for people to then feel like we can be in a room together. We can be from different backgrounds, different cultures, and we can be in this room and we are family in this moment, you know, and the creatives can start to vibe with each other and again foster each other's art. So it's incumbent on those of us who know the real to bring the real and keep the real.
The love's
there.
still there though. The love is still there. I feel it when I'm out and about, and when I'm talking to people, the love is still there.
Absolutely. And you know, you're going to get people coming into your space that don't understand the scene. And, you know, I create rules in my club. Like, don't stand on my dance floor. There's no parking.
None of that, no?
On the dance floor. So if you come in and you're standing on my dance floor, I'm going to send somebody or myself to let you know you need to go to the wall. You can stand. If you want to watch people dance, that's fine, but you have to watch from the sidelines. You can't be in the middle of the dance floor because if you look around, this is a culture of people dancing.
So what do you reckon on the phone thing? What do you reckon on that?
Go over there and don't turn your light on.
Well, I think we're winning the battle though. We've been talking quite a lot on that. And obviously it was alien to me. The first time I really noticed it was the very early days of Ushuaia. And I've gone in there because I want to go and see what it's like. I love the island. Gone in there and playing some good music. I think Hot from 82 was playing. I think it's playing a great set. And I'm watching this. There's thousands of people like that, and I'm like, and I couldn't work it out to start with. I thought, they're playing dance music. Why are these people not dancing?
Well, I think that went left when they started, when again corporate America came into the equation and started referring to DJs playing as a show. That changed the whole context in people's minds of what they were going to be a part of. So now it's like I'm going to so and so's show. And they're going to DJ. Like, I don't think that makes sense to me. You know,
you want to see people dancing, even if you're singing. You still want to see people dancing.
You want people to be engaged, and you know you want
showing their emotions of what you're creating for them.
Absolutely. But you know, again, there are now places where that's not the expectation. It's really just about massive numbers and branding. But as much as there is that, I feel like it creates more of a need and a niche for the true culture. And people still are going to look for that. They're still going to look for that sense of community. They're going to look for that place where they can get away from the stress of their lives. You know, when we used to go clubbing when we first started, it was like going to church. It is literally going to church.
This is like this movement.
Let it all go on the dance floor.
It's like a religion, isn't it? What we've created is like a religion, and it, you know, you know, I don't believe in God or anything like that, but I believe in this scene, and I believe in what I've been doing over these years. And it is like a religion, you know. It's got followings. You know, it's no different, is it? Really?
No, and I don't think that that's going to die. It may be smaller in pockets, but I don't think that true origin is ever going to really die.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
I think it's going to have a 360. I already know of people that are talking about the clubs closing and so many sort of smaller venues, but I'm just hoping that pockets of those will evolve soon.
And they will.
Yeah.
London
necessity, they will.
Absolutely.
Yeah. London is suffering at the moment, obviously because of the way it's going with places shutting down and stuff like that. It's quite sad. You know, a lot of venues that I've done millions of parties at, you know, no longer there anymore. You know, it's quite sad in that respect. So that's more to do with what's going on in the country with the governments and things like that. But I'm always thinking it's going to get better. It's got to get better. You know?
Well, it's unsustainable where it is at the moment. It's unsustainable. But you know that if you look at the cycle of anything that's popular, it's going to go through that cycle again where underground becomes more prevalent again, and it reinvents itself, and then that starts to seep out to the masses, and then it gets big again, and then it goes back underground, and that's fine. That's just where we are. The job for us that know and understand the culture from its purest sense, our job is just to keep it front and center and represent the alternative. You know, that's how I look at it. I know, there was a period where my voice was not in vogue in terms of stylistically. People would send me tracks to co-write, and they would be like, "Oh, we don't need a whole verse," and God forbid you write a bridge. Like, folks they don't understand what is a bridge these days. Like the songwriting aspect.
It's just nick bits.
Yeah,
nick bits,
it's diluted down to like, oh, we just need a top line. We just need a hook. And I get that, and there's a place for that. But that's not going to make that song timeless, where 2 decades from now, someone is going to care about that song because you're not impacting culture in a real way. Maybe one or two might sneak through the cracks, but overall, you're not really feeding the culture in a real way. Now, as it comes back around and people have heard these same kind of voices over and over again that sound super mechanical, that have no soul to them, they have no resonance, no grit or anything, suddenly everyone wants a soulful vocal of some sort in their in the equation. So
listen, I'm a soul boy. I come from the jazz funk soul era, and for me the voice is the music. If you've got great music with a great voice, it's that's what it's all about for me. Absolutely. I've always liked the happier side of dance and house music, and it's always got a good vocal on it. So
well, that's why songs like Free and other songs out of my catalog, and other artists like Robin S. and Crystal Waters and Anaya Day, this is why those songs still resonate on the dance floor.
Yeah, still getting played
because
constantly.
They impacted culture, and people have memories and nostalgia to them, but they also have continued through the generations. It's interesting at this point in my career because my fan base is so multi-generational that it's kind of astounding. Like I'm running into adult fans that are like, "I grew up on your music," and it's like,
that's
wow.
Nice,
or kids, that are my son's age in college that are listening to my records and know them in and out. So that's kind of really bizarre at this stage to have like little kids and then seniors also, know and love the music that you've put out over the years.
Let's talk a little about what you're doing, why you're here in Manchester. Let's talk about the Hacienda Classic. Hacienda Classics. Let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, I love this brand, and I've done it once before, and it's always a very well put together party event. The fans here in Manchester are very dedicated to their music. Hacienda was a very impactful scene in terms of when house came from the U.S. and started really
it was one of the enclaves. It was one of
the beginning hubs of house music getting a footing in the UK and then into Europe.
I had this conversation with Graham earlier, Graham Park, and this was sort of north of England. This was the place that it was being played. Later on, Liverpool came involved. and us in London. That was pretty much it at the beginning. And then suddenly it started springing up everywhere, didn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Hacienda, and that's why we want to come down and cover this, because it has a big part in this history.
It has a huge part in this history, and it's amazing how on both sides of the water, these things were all coming together simultaneously, but without them being necessarily connected to each other.
No, they weren't connected. That was the whole thing. It wasn't connected. And as I said earlier, that yes, house music came out of Chicago in the mid-'80s, but it wasn't really what it went on to be, was it?
No.
It wasn't until the likes of me and other people in London and the Hacienda and people like that started putting this whole new sort of acid house kind of, soulful kind of dance music together, and that's how it all started. That is the history, basically. That's how it all created.
There was those initial elements that came out of the garage in Chicago, but it really once those little bits got over here, like it just blew up exponentially. I mean, the UK audience really created, this platform to get bigger and bigger. They really embraced it.
I mean, I started doing, parties all over London, but, we were doing parties for 1,000 people, Chelsea Football Club, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
When me and Tommy went to Ibiza in the late 80s, we were putting sometimes 10,000 people in Cooley when it was open air. I mean, it was absolutely, it just went completely nuts for us.
Mm-hmm.
And their memories are so in my mind, it's fantastic. I sometimes wonder how the hell we did it. That's the other thing.
Well, we did it because there was just so much love for it, and it was just an energy around creating at that time. We were creating without having a template. We were creating the template in real time, and that was the beauty of it. We basically formed a whole new genre of music and a whole culture out of it.
I try to explain to people, because when we all love Alfredo, PP and Cesar, the original DJs from Ibiza who played in their clubs for the whole evening. Mm-hmm. But then when I turned up, I started bringing these other DJs from England to play with them. First of all, they weren't keen, but it was like a clash of two musics. You had the Balearic beat plus this dance music from Chicago, but also from London.
Yeah.
And it created a whole new thing, which I'm proud of.
Yeah, totally.
It's a nice thing that started this whole thing off, which is absolutely brilliant. So the future, what's the future hold?
Well, I've got quite a few things going on right now. I'm currently the named composer in residence for the Baltimore Museum of Art.
That sounds interesting.
Where I live, and I'm working on a huge event to premiere in the museum in August. And they are honoring me as a Baltimorean, as a creative that built culture from the ground up in my own space, supporting my city, and then continuing on to represent my city worldwide.
So that's a proud Baltimore.
That's a huge honor to be acknowledged in that way, especially in the art community. That kind of platform, we're used to, again, living outside the margins. So it's really great to be acknowledged in what's considered like a fine arts kind of space. Working on my next album, which is called Voyeur, the EP, which will be part one to that, to hopefully get that out by the end of the summer as well. And then massive touring. I've had a massive touring schedule for this year, and that's even before Movin To The Sun came out.
This isn't the only classics you do. You do other classics as well.
I do other classics, but they're beyond classic kind of oriented shows. Yeah, and it's everywhere, U.S. and abroad.
Yeah, amazing. I'm just so glad with your insight, your experience, sharing your story with us on.
What we're trying to convey here is a history of this whole dance music.
Yeah.
The people that put it together, people who are still out there doing it. And this is, it's been great having you on for this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And I hope the new generation and producers out there are watching this show, because your take and the information you were given about, music being created by the soul, really understanding music, like the elements of having a guitar riff, with free.
It's more than just nicking a few bits, isn't it?
It's so beautiful to kind of see that side of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah.
Thank you.
So, Naté, the whole reason we're here today is to induct you into the Global Club and Dance Hall of Fame.
Oh, thank you.
And Thank you, young lady.
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored. Yay. Hey, hey, hey. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So that's all from us at the Global Club and Dance Hall of Fame. Remember to like, subscribe, and to follow us on all of our platforms. See you soon.
Global Club and Dance Hall of